On his way, I know.
Welcome, everyone, to the Elected Officials Transportation Committee mini retreat. This is Aspen, Snowmass, and Pitkin County. Today is April 23rd, a Thursday, and we appreciate you all being here. I'm going to take just a moment of indulgence before we get going to say that if you have not filled in your fire survey yet for the Aspen Fire Department, there's a QR code on the back. They're trying to understand urban spread within the city of Aspen better. And so please be sure to fill these in if you're watching this. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then as we're getting going, I was wondering, is Brian Pettit here today? Can Brian Pettit come up and answer a few questions for us up here?
I'll have my documents here.
I've heard a rumor that you are retiring, Mr. Pettit. Is that true?
Well, I have
You are? Does that mean that this is your last EOTC meeting after, what, 20 years of EOTC meetings?
Pretty much, yeah. I've been with the county 34 years, but yeah, a long time.
That's really astounding. And having been a commissioner and on the city council and a member of the EOTC, I just wanted to let you know how greatly your contributions have been appreciated over the years. You've really done a lot for us. And while it's not much, here's some City of Aspen swag to take with you to enjoy on the way out, okay?
Wonder, is it a lockbox? I don't know.
I know, lots of lockbox. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think city council should know he is retiring from the county. He's going to work for the city now.
Great, that's the best thing I've heard of. So, thank you very much. And how about everybody, one round of applause for Brian. Thank you. We will now move on to the agenda, and the first thing, we're just going to go around the table with introductions so everyone knows each other. Once again, Patty.
Patty Clapper, Pickens County Commissioner.
Sam Rose, Aspen City Council.
Ted Mann, Pickens County Commissioner.
Alyssa Shank, Mayor of Snowmass Village.
Rachel Richards, Mayor Aspen.
John Doyle, Aspen City Council.
Francie Jacober, Pickens County Commissioner.
Jeffrey Woodruff, Pickens County Commissioner.
Christine Benedetti, Aspen City Council.
Tom Fritstein, Snowmass Village Council.
Britta Gustafson, Snowmass Village Council.
Thank you very much, and you guys go ahead and take over the agenda from here.
Okay. I'm Linda DuPriest. I'm the EOTC Director. Ryan Mahoney, Deputy County Manager for Pickens County, will be our facilitator tag teaming tonight.
Can you guys speak up a little bit?
Or in the microphone? Yeah.
Yeah,
My voice should be able to carry, so yes.
very good,
Sorry.
thank you.
Okay, so we'll get started. So first of all, I think hopefully today we can get some good feedback from you all. I think it's been a number of years, maybe dating back to 2020 or so, since the last time you all got together to kind of discuss EOTC and what the future of EOTC might look like. So today is sort of, I guess, a retooling of that meeting a number of years ago, and a good opportunity to hear from folks that might be new on the council and the Board of County Commissioners, and, you know, what changes have come about in the county that might spur some new ideas as it relates to transportation. So a couple things as it relates to tonight's agenda. I thought I would ask permission to rearrange a couple items on here. I think the two key items that I want to make sure that we have time to get to are the discussion on funding and then also the discussion on governance. We will keep the future projects on there, and we'll save some time for that toward the end, but I want to make sure that most importantly, you all are able to discuss those first two topics. So with your permission, I would start with those.
That's good, but I was hoping we would do a little bit of the EOTC history and key accomplishments.
Oh, for sure,
as
that won't
framework.
change.
Okay.
That won't change.
Box of Kleenex.
And
It-
at least
it's-
my agenda doesn't have future projects, it just has summary. Mine just has summary and final thoughts, it doesn't have future projects as a listing. Is that what you're thinking about is under funding scenarios?
Oh, yes, the one that I'm looking at, apologies, I don't know. It
Okay.
says funding scenarios and future projects, and
Just
then,
moving
Okay,
that
I
item.
see what you're
and then
saying,
it goes to governance structure. So I'm just going to move the future projects part
off that.
off of that, and we'll take that up after we talk about the governance
I gotcha.
structure.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Ryan's not in yet.
Sorry, I'm trying to advance.
Thank you.
Use your cursor.
There. I don't know if you did that or I, so I might have to ask again. So I am hoping that we can stick to these timeframes pretty closely, so we have an opportunity to get to all of the items. And then we will adjourn promptly at 6, because there are a number of you that are heading over to a meeting at the library for the River District's discussion. So,
Not a meeting.
as it relates to the EOTC history and key accomplishments, we just have one slide on that today. I know that there's a number of you in the room that have been around for a long time and have been part of a lot of these accomplishments. In your packet, we did have probably 2 or 3 pages of different accomplishments, but I think these are the ones that are going to kind of get to the center of what we're going to be discussing today. And then if there are any others that you all might like to bring up just to kind of celebrate what EOTC has accomplished over the years, certainly we can accommodate that. So this first gets to us dating back to 1993, where the voters approved a countywide half-cent transportation sales and use tax. And the purpose of that was for maintaining the mass transportation system within the Roaring Fork Valley. So there is that geography tied to it. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that. And then in 1993 also, there was an IGA that was signed among the 3 jurisdictions, so Pitkin County, Town of Snowmass Village, and the City of Aspen. The purpose of that was to support the tax. At that time, you adopted a comprehensive transportation plan, and then you also created the EOTC. I believe that was amended in 2021, that the IGA, but still the main ideas of that original one dating back to 1993 are relevant. So with that, we're going to move on to funding, but I don't know if there was anything back in the history of what's been done that anybody wanted to mention.
Patty?
Yeah, I have just a quick question. In 1995, can somebody just clarify? It says airport park and ride completed, but it goes down, it was completed in 1998. Where's that located?
It was turned into rental car parking.
Okay,
And I
'cause
don't
I'm
know if the
trying to remember
EOTC
where.
ever got repaid for that from the airport, but,
interesting.
but that's what happened to that park and ride lot.
Thank you.
The one thing I think is worth mentioning here is the advent of bus rapid transit. That was a major lift from RAFTA. It was done as a regional transportation authority, which this body had a lot to do with forming over the years, and is now the main trunk line for transportation services we bring forward. I don't know how much that original grant was to RAFTA to be able to start BRT, but it was very significant. So I think that's the other milestone that is worth noting, especially because of the bus rapid transit bus lanes that come from Buttermilk to the roundabout. Anyone else have any significant RAFTA data points? Okay. I do recall Mr. Rice, who was our Public Works Director at the time, giving a presentation to RAFTA Board about a year ago, maybe a little more than that. And he said the single greatest drop in traffic crossing the Castle Creek Bridge occurred when bus rapid transit went into effect. So I think that's just worth bearing in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rachel. Okay, so getting into EOTC funding, you can see from this slide here, it does outline where that funding is attributed to today. And we want to get into a discussion with you of what it's used for, and is it sort of continuing to be interpreted, that original ballot language, the same as what we've always, I guess, used the money for, which is for mass transit specifically. And we'll define that here in just a moment. But you can see that of the 1% tax, about half of it goes to RAFTA. and the other half goes to Aspen and Snowmass to directly support their mass transit efforts within those communities. And then that 0.5% lion's share goes to RAFTA again, and then the balance goes to EOTC. And I did look up in the budget today that a balance that goes to EOTC is about $2.2 million, $2.3 million for this year is what I believe that is.
And again, I would just note for all of us that our half penny has gone down in contributions back to us as the Upper Valley, as we were matching the contributions that the Down Valley communities were putting in to become members of RAFTA. So that's why we continue to vote with our voters to allocate more of the half penny towards RAFTA. And that was our share when they were upping for the first time.
Okay. Okay. So the EOTC funding, so back to just briefly that 1993 ballot language. You can see this quote here. For purposes of increasing and improving public mass transportation system in the Roaring Fork Valley. And then we go to the statutes, and so the statutes specifically define what mass transportation means. And it is a coordinated system of transit modes, basically can be bus or rail or other, of conveying people along prescribed routes. So that is pretty specific and prescriptive. And what we heard from our town attorney, or our county attorney rather, who may join us here later in the meeting, is what can we use the EOTC portion of the sales and use tax for, and how much flexibility we have. I know this has been a lot of talk, at least recently. There's been some curiosity on that, specifically in light of the fact that we have the Transportation Coalition coming up with some mitigation strategies for the congestion, and then there are other transportation ideas in tonight's packet that are coming from your transportation staffs from your respective jurisdictions. So, good news, bad news. The punchline is that RY has let us know that there is not a lot of flexibility. So, using the funding that we have been has to continue to be for mass transit specifically. Using it for TDMs, is that the term of art?
Programs.
Yeah, programs. Probably not as much flexibility for that.
Rachel, can I ask a question? I'm not familiar with the term transportation staff. Who is our transportation staff?
Well, you have Brian Pettit from Public Works, and then you have Linda, who works for EOTC, and then you have Lynn Rumbaugh from the city, and then Sam Garino from Snowmass Village.
I guess I've just never heard them called transportation staff before. Thank you.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
So I think on this next page here are some scenarios, and these were just suggestions to kind of get you all thinking about some discussion points. And these by no means are things that have to stay as, kind of one idea. You can mix and match on these, but this is really where we do want to hear from you as to whether or not there's any interest in expanding that funding. Obviously, there have been recently discussions throughout the Upper Valley of different shuttles being provided, whether that's from the airport or from the hospital and the schools into the city or up into Snowmass Village. So, I would assume those dollars could be attributed to that and probably take up quite a bit of our annual revenue. But that being said, is that where we want to put all of the share of our EOTC money? Do we want to split it into other programs? So just walking through at a high level for what we have on the screen here, is you could expand the scope of what we have that could be outside of the Roaring Fork Valley. So there's a geographic question that could be considered. And then also the different strategies, like I just said, you know, some of these ride share ideas that are out there, or employer-based solutions, and getting people from down valley locations into work sites, as an example. The second idea up here is funding projects that primarily focus, you know, just on the Upper Valley. So not the entire Roaring Fork Valley, because we know that, you know, people still live in, you know, between here and Parachute, and there is likely to be congestion in the Upper Valley, and is it worth spending the lion's share of the money to deal with congestion issues up here? Another geographic issue potentially. And then the last is, do you want to keep the EOTC money at all? Do you want to redistribute it back out to the entities that use it today, and you know, kind of concentrate more money for those Upper Valley transportation systems? And again, these are all just sort of brainstorm ideas, obviously very different in scope potentially, but hopefully that spurs some ideas from you all, and you know, I'd love to hear at this point from you all on what you think of some of these.
Okay, I want to let Susan know we see your hand up, and we will call on you in just a moment online. And I wanted to kind of make a broader statement for the board. I think that the EOTC should send a formal kind of interrogatory to the county attorney and ask yes or no on very specific items. Otherwise, we just have this, oh, it's got to be mostly mass transit, but that seems a little vague, you know, in some level, because of that definition as you were using. You know, can it be used on a car share app? The answer might be no, but I'd rather have it formally settled than us continue to just say probably not, maybe not. I mean, I remember when we were not, Patty may remember as well, able to use EOTC money for that railroad bridge before the old Maroon Creek Bridge was replaced. And we provided a safe bike path there. Can it be used for bike connection across the Roaring Fork River from the Airport Business Center? That would be a route. It'd be on a dedicated route, as the transportation seemed to say. Can it be used for ongoing work on the design and engineering that the city will need to do to move the entrance to Aspen forward, perhaps even just on the BRT elements of that program? But I think we should get a really, before we start saying we have to use it this way, or we can't use it that way, or we should use it here, we should ask all the questions about how it could or couldn't be used. And the concern I've had a little bit is that the ability to even ask for the half penny back in 1993 was done by state statute and by legislature. We were all capped at that point in time. But I think that understanding if there's limitations in the original authorizing legislation would be important to us. And I'll leave that alone there. Again, if others have other ideas that they want to get a hard yes, you can, or no, you can't about using the money that way, I think would be very important. It almost raises the concept of the parking garage. You know, we've always assumed it could pay for a parking garage for automobiles, but is that mass transit? And so I think we need to clarify some of those sort of things, very, very much so. I will say, just for everyone's edification, that this ballot 175, which may take away all the transit money in Colorado, also redefines what transportation is. They narrow the definition, so you can't include buses and things like that. So that's a real dangerous ballot measure that the Colorado Contractors Association is pushing right now. So those are my comments on his question. I do think we should get a firm yes or no on any of the concepts that we've thought about using for this. It'd be great to find out if the airport ever repaid the EOTC for that parking lot that they got. Other than that, I'll turn it over to the board. It's Francie.
I just have a question. Can we get some specificity on what the EOT funds have been used for in the past? I'm sort of in the dark about what we've actually done with that money.
In some ways, it's in that accomplishments file.
Yeah, and I
Well-
think one of the dangers of the accomplishment file, which I
Yeah.
learned from Linda, was that some of these are improvements that the jurisdictions made that are transportation related. I'm not so sure they're in each instance tied to or had EOTC funding specifically.
Right.
And so I haven't been around long enough, Francie, to answer that question specifically, but
Answer it.
thank you.
In the last few years, since I've been here and some of the projects I inherited from before I got here from David Pesnichak, who's sitting behind me, is that we've gotten a little bit outside of the strict mass transit definition in that we funded some bike and pedestrian stuff that connects to mass transit. We fund WeCycle. We funded the transportation study at the AABC
The what?
that connects to transit.
What was the last one?
The multimodal study at the AABC. So there have been some projects that the EOTC has funded, the repaving of Brush Creek. That is for the purpose of shifting trips from cars to transit.
Right.
So a strict interpretation, and we hope to have Ryan Neely, our county attorney, on the phone here in a little bit, is it's gotten a little outside of the strict definition. In the last couple of years, we've had requests for some specific spending that, before I was on board, John Ely, rest in peace, absolutely told us, you cannot spend it on that. And the notable example is enforcing the HOV lane.
Right.
That was something absolutely can't. The other one was, we have gotten requests to fund the Basalt Connector and the Glenwood Springs Connector and some of these local transportation services that sometimes they connect to transit, but sometimes they don't.
Right.
So that's an area that prompted this question too. And then anything programmatic, a carpool app, the staff that would have to manage that, fund it, all of that. We don't think that that applies.
Yeah. And I agree that it probably doesn't, but I still want it in writing. I just want this formalized. Does that answer your question?
No. I wanted to know what we had spent the money on, how much money we have, specifics like that, not like what could we spend money on, although that's interesting. So that would be helpful if we had that. I'm sure we've had it like a year ago, some kind of budget report, but just like right now, when we're thinking about what else can we do, it'd be nice to know how much we have and
If we could email the current budget, the approved budget for this year to Pete, and he can get it to someone to Xerox for us and bring out for all the rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
So we can have some hard copies on that. As it kind of was explained before, 81% of the half penny goes to daily annual RAFTA services.
Right.
So we have that. The remaining, there's been some set aside and being held for the parking garage. There's been just the work at the Brush Creek Intercept lot. I mean, you really have to go through each year's past budget to understand each time there was made acquisition or purchase or money towards electric buses or something.
Can I clarify?
Yeah, please do.
Rachel, it's not a parking garage in Snowmass. It's
Okay.
a transit center.
Okay, thank you for that.
Tom's Transit Center.
I was wondering what parking garage.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
not parking. It's a double-decked transit center.
Okay, transit
So
center,
it does,
thank you.
it is mass transit.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Is there any car parking there?
Not in the garage, no.
Not in the new
No.
plans?
Not in the design as is.
Okay, well, I've seen so many designs over the years. I'm
Yes,
glad
no.
to know.
In Tom's design, no. I call it Tom's because he worked really hard on
kind of getting it to a better place, so.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And there is food for everyone over there because we have that water meeting right afterwards. So please, there's sandwich pieces, more than just snacks, if you want any.
And if I may, without going too far down the rabbit hole for Francie, I figured a question about the budget might come up. So, just to ground you all, this is the 2026 budget in this green column. And you can see in that budget that our fund balance, if you start kind of down toward the bottom here, Francie, the beginning available fund balance is on the order of 12 million. We have held back 6 million in reserve, just below that, for that Snowmass Transit Center. So that has not been spent. And then if you come up higher, and there you can see generally what our revenues look like. So about $2.3 million as it relates to the sales tax, and then the use tax, about $850,000.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We have a lot of money and we don't spend it.
And I think that's a good position to be in for you all, in that you can come up with some ideas for how to put that money to use here coming in the future. So I think that's in part why we're here, right? So my anticipated question was
I really
right.
appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'd love to hear from some more of you as well, just on the funding piece.
No, Susan's just had her hand up.
Susan, we're going to unmute you right now. There you go. Can you hear us?
I think she's muted.
Susan, unmute yourself on your computer.
Oh, I got it.
Good, good.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you.
Great. Hi. Thanks so much. I feel like it would be great to get, some clarification on what we can spend money on, but I also feel like it might be a better use of time to decide what we would like to spend money on, what we think is worthy and a good, what are our goals and strategies, which we might get to further on into the meeting, and then how can we make that fit, or how can we make sure that that fits in the focus of this funding? I don't want us to just only do what narrowly they say we can spend money on. So I would be in favor of either expanding it or trying to find ways that the things that we want to do could fit into the funding scope.
Yeah, thank you for that, Susan. It's a good point, and I certainly didn't mean to limit it in any way. There are questions, we can talk about the projects without having the answers of can we fund it or not till later. But at the same time, I want to answer questions around what a new ballot would mean or look like.
Right.
Should there be that? If there's a new ballot to change how the remainder of the EOTC half penny could be spent, and if it failed, would that mean the penny went away? Or how do you word it so that a failure would leave us at least right where we are now, as opposed to not? And want to make sure there would be enough people to really be interested in running a campaign to pass whatever we might consider. And would it be compelling enough to the public that they wanted those changes in its usage? So there could be a lot of research necessary before any real ballot question goes forward. Please.
I agree.
Do you have other comments to add? And throughout the meeting, feel free to raise your hand.
That's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
I did have a suggestion.
Patty?
Real quick. Yeah, I think Francie's question's worthy of taking the list of things that we've accomplished and just highlighting which ones of those were paid out of EOT funds. Because the list gives you a template for where you fill in the information, which would simplify the task for staff. So that would be my suggestion. Just go through and say, this was paid for by EOTC in this amount, this amount, this.
I think we should do that, and you mean for future reference, not for right now?
Yeah, we can't do it right now unless we want to spend the rest of the meeting waiting for
Right.
that information, but that'll tie into what I'm going to say at the end of this meeting, but I think that helps answers Francie's question.
Yeah. Well, and it also really points out the partnerships that have existed between RAFTA, the city, Snowmass, Picken County, in all these projects. Everyone's done their share on the side. So did you want us to talk about these future projects now and get a sense of what people are most interested in?
Well, I think first, as it relates to these funding, I'd like to just dig in on that a little bit more. You know, I think we had this geography question as to, you know, right now it's the Roaring Fork Valley. Do you have any desire to change that? Is that still the right geography? Do you go out of the valley potentially? Or do you, and then the second question is, it sounds like there could be some interest on being able to expand uses of that money if we understand from Rye that it is rather restrictive. And then also what a campaign might look like. What's the risk of losing that money? So I would like to hear just, you know, it will help staff come back with some of those ideas for you.
Yeah. The one thing I'm kind of thinking is maybe it's easier for us to reaffirm what our goals would be for the use of those monies, as opposed to picking out kind of individual things we might want to do. You know, I understand from the RAFTA board and others that we're really seeing about 10% of the workforce of Picken County coming as far away as Rifle, Newcastle, Parachute. But at the same time, they're not contributing the way that our public is in Rifle. And, you know, it becomes a little bit of a chicken and egg thing. There was a time period when Aspen did and Picken County paid for the buses to go through Glenwood and show them what service could do for them. And then they joined RAFTA, and then they started participating. So if you were doing something that was like a kind of a one-time shot, this is what it could be like, and starting to fund it, that's one thing. But I don't think when we know that a lot of the riders from Rifle stop in Carbondale to work and stop in other areas to work, and they don't really, you know, you really can't say if we funded 100% of the service and 90% of the workers aren't coming all the way up to the Aspen, Snowmass, Pitkin area, then why? You know, it's just kind of there needs more data to be served, to my mind. And so for goals, like for me, I want to see maximum utilization of the Brush Creek Intercept lot. You know, it's on our sheet, but how do we get there? I don't know. What are the other goals that we have that we want selected projects to actually match with?
I
Patty?
have another thought to put out here.
Please.
I think tonight's meeting, I think we can just open a lot of discussions. But I think what, Rachel, you're suggesting is more of a strategic plan, which we haven't really formulated for EOTC in many
5,
years.
6
if
years.
Ever. And I think those goals would be part of that. I really think that we need to clarify the funding issues. We need to have a strategic plan. So I know a lot of you who know me are not going to believe I'm using this word. I'm using the word retreat. And I'm thinking after we figure out the governance and where we want to go for meetings and membership and where we can use our monies, we should have a mini retreat with a facilitator, maybe sometime in the fall, and come up with a strategic plan where we outline our goals and where we want these monies to specifically go, knowing where we can use them and what projects we would like to see moving forward. I don't think we're going to settle that here tonight. I think that needs to be a separate discussion, but I think we can tonight we can set up that discussion for the future. Just a thought.
Yeah, I don't know how to proceed that way, that's separate. I can't make funding decisions without knowing what sort of goals they're going to fulfill. And I think the original goals are still there of the original half-penny of managing or reducing traffic congestion in the Upper Valley.
I'm not saying tonight make decisions on where funding's going to go. We need to make decisions on more information we need to know about where funding might be able to go or how we might be able to get there with a future ballot question. That's part of it, but I think a strategic plan would be.
Do we still agree the goal that the original half-penny was formulated under of managing and reducing traffic in the Upper Valley is a valid goal?
Well, we may decide we want to manage traffic coming from outside the valley, but that's a bigger discussion, I think, that we have before us tonight. But I'm not saying let's figure we're going to spend $10 here and $20 there.
I don't think we are talking about that, but.
Well, that's what sorry if I misinterpreted what you said, but you were saying we're not going to decide tonight where our funding's going to go. Yeah, we're not. We need to have information as to where our funding can go, where it has gone. And then I think we need to figure out what our plan would be, what our goals would be. I think things have changed since Rachel and I first became involved, and I think now is the time to step back and figure out where we want to go in the future.
So I might suggest, and I think, we have on here, Rachel, some of these projects and ideas, and that could get your creative juices flowing, perhaps, as we talk about those, and you might need some explanation from staff on what they mean. So we don't have to spend too much more time on this, but if anybody does have any other thoughts or comments just on the funding as it's narrowly interpreted today from RI, that it would need to stay with sort of mass transit within the valley. Does that, is there desire for you all to have a conversation about there could be other broader uses of that, assuming that whole, what RI's interpretation is, you get that confirmation. And then secondly, does the geography matter to you at this time? So I think that if we could just get a little bit of that feedback, then we can move on to the sort of next discussion topic.
Yeah, I wanted to briefly respond to a couple of things you said, and then I want to talk about the geography question that you posed.
Okay.
We do have a lot of statistics on the people who ride the bus and the people who contribute to the traffic, and we know that of the traffic that comes through Glenwood, 50% of it comes to Aspen, so not all of it. So there's that. But I want us to think about the effect of these commuters who come to Aspen on the people who live in Glenwood Springs, because their traffic is just as bad, if not worse, than the Upper Valley traffic. And yes, some of it is Basalt and Willits and Carbondale, but a lot of it is, half of it is people coming to Aspen. So I would not like us to focus only on the Upper Valley. I know you've heard me say this many times, Rachel, of the Transportation Coalition. But I was coming out yesterday from from Glenwood at traffic time, and it is always shocking. Yep. It went all the way to the turnoff. It went past the Holy Cross turnoff, the bumper-to-bumper, not moving traffic. It's really shocking. And so that would be my push a little bit, that we find things to do that help all the commuters who are coming up here. Thank you.
All right,
You want to start spending the money further down Valley. I mean, we are spending 81% of the half penny now through RAFTA, and we should do more.
Thank you, that reminds me.
Okay, thank you.
So, so I just wanted to say that I would say the biggest culprit in the RAFTA funding is not Rifle, or it's Garfield County.
Right.
That they're not members of RAFTA, and it is a glaring hole in the continuity in our valley. I don't know if I want to spend the money in Glenwood. I want to spend it on things that help the whole valley.
Okay, that's a good clarification, Tom. And
when you look at how much money we have annually, it's about $2 million, which is not a huge amount of money what things cost now. And we have some money in our reserves, but it's not a huge amount of money. I'm in favor of keeping focused on mass transportation. I think it's a huge need. Personally, I feel that more, better, faster, freer RAFTA buses would do huge, it won't solve everything, but it will do a lot to help. And I don't think we're there yet. So I'm nervous about going back and trying to expand our scope outside of what we're doing. And, I would like to keep a focus on the Roaring Fork Valley, on mass transportation. I think there's a lot to be done yet. Garfield County has to step up and help out with their transportation, which they haven't done. And I don't think it's appropriate for us to try to solve the problems in Rifle and Silt, because that's somebody else's problem. I mean, it's everybody's problem, but we can't solve everybody's problem. There is and I'll make the plug again for the transit center in Snowmass. Sorely needed. It would combine the RAFTA buses and the shuttle buses in one location. It's been talked about for 30 years. EOTC set aside $6 million 26 years ago. Now, 26 years ago, you probably could have built a transit center. Right now, we're talking something in the $40, $45 million range. So, and we had to stop pursuing it when all the federal funding and state funding got pulled back in recent years. But the goal is still to go forward. We have a design. We want to go forward. I would hope that we could add some more money to that kitty for the Snowmass Village Transit Center when the time comes. To me, that is a real good use of EOTC, and it will really increase ridership on RAFTA, which is the goal. So that's where I'm at. I think there's a lot to be accomplished still within the scope that we set out with for EOTC.
Thank you, Tom. That actually kind of brings up a question that's easier to frame by saying operating versus capital. Because whenever things go into operating, you need to renew it constantly. It never ends, and it's a commitment. Capital should be a one-time thing, and you can end up using everything in operating and never having anything left for capital, or vice versa. Sam, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, I wrote down a bunch of things, whatever sticks, but I would think good EOTC funding would be for strongly maintained transportation infrastructure. Sometimes we replace asphalt with concrete in places to prevent potholes. I think people would really notice that and appreciate it. I would suggest implementation of traffic and transportation studies that we have already done and are currently doing. Putting some of those to action with potentially EOTC funds. I wrote down trackless tram. I think that's like sort of the future version of light rail, and I think it will happen at one point in the next decade or so. That could be really beneficial to this community. I know for RAFTA, housing and having enough buses, so there's no shortage of buses and bus drivers, I think is very important, even though money goes to RAFTA, to ensure that that's completely possible. And then we've already talked about stuff on this commission about like completing connections like the Truscott to Buttermilk Trail. So we already have projects in the pipeline, so making sure those don't fall through the cracks. And lastly, the big gorilla in the room, the entrance to Aspen solutions, potentially in tandem with the 21st Century Coalition, but trying to solve a lot of our congestion and transportation issues with a new reevaluation of the entrance and actually putting those to action.
Yeah, that's a good list, Sam. Thank you. Ted, you're up next.
Yeah, just to clarify, I don't know, not reading the original 93, what was passed, or you can see the IGA that's in there from 2021 on the subject of what we can and can't do. And geography, are we allowed to, with the language that's there, to use it however we want and as far down valley as we want? Because I know it's a Pitkin County initiative where it's being managed by just up valley entities. Whether that still should be the case, I don't know. But, we're increasingly being asked to cover things that are far outside of the jurisdiction that this was passed. And I was just curious, if we're talking to RISE or anything that would preclude using some of this in places that are far outside of what it was originally designed. I didn't read that in the 2021. I didn't know if someone could get info on that.
I really,
We-
in a way, we do, because we give it to RAFTA, and RAFTA uses it across the region already.
And also we cycle.
And we cycle. And just kind of background for people, RAFTA started contributing to the Down Valley communities for both We Cycle and the Downtowner as kind of startup money, so that they would give them the initial seed money for the first few years, and it'd be a declining amount. And it was anticipated that the Down Valley communities would start finding their own funding source to continue to maintain those things. Instead, they're kind of coming back to RAFTA or the EOTC. And it also kind of argues the bigger point we've discussed a few times at the Mass Transportation Committee, is the Down Valley communities do not do paid parking. And so they're ignoring a revenue source to pay for their own things and to help manage and reduce their own traffic congestion in Glenwood Springs or other areas. And we're up here at $7 an hour now. And so kind of asking for our share of the money, and we're trying to control traffic growth, but other communities are saying, drive all you want, park wherever you want, park for free all day. It's challenging. So who else, Ted, did you have more on that?
No, I was just curious. I want to make sure before we start talking about using it far outside of the county that that's been okay. I'm just getting up to speed on all this, and I didn't read that anywhere.
Okay.
Can I clarify that, my comment about that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify for Ted, my comment about that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying take the money and spend it on a big parking lot in Glenwood, but if we contributed to the free fare program, for instance, I think it was 15% reduction, I can't remember exactly, but I mean, increase in riders. And so that is exactly what Tom is talking about, getting more people on the buses, which is what mass transit is. So it's kind of like that, like the flip of that is that if people get in their cars and drive to Brush Creek and then get on the bus to avoid traffic in Aspen or parking fees in Aspen, that doesn't help Down Valley traffic.
Right.
So just that, to me, that's not a solution that helps the whole valley, helps Aspen.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would just say, Ted, I took a note on that. We can find out the restrictions on the use, and we'll follow
Yeah, maybe
up.
there aren't any. I'm just
Yeah.
getting up to speed.
It sounds like there's a desire for you all to hear back on, okay, we need to know what the sideboards are for the use.
John, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, we're talking about how we'd like to see money spent.
I think so. We kind of, it's been ranging a little bit.
That's the subject we're still on, right? Okay, so we're talking about traffic, which is a valley-wide phenomenon. It's not just Aspen, it's not just Glenwood. I'd like to go back to the entrance to Aspen, which includes a light rail component. Right now, the county is working on redeveloping the airport, and I think there's an opportunity to connect the downtown of Aspen with the airport via better mass transit with the possibility of installing light rail in the future. And I was just reading in yesterday's paper that Front Range Rail is moving forward. They expect to have passengers on the Front Range Railroad by 2029. We know that passenger rail is going from Denver to Winter Park and beyond to Steamboat and Craig in the very near future. I appreciate that increasing buses and making it easier for buses is the correct path forward now, but I think we should be thinking farther into the future. And I think some of this money should be spent on valley-wide polling to see what the community's appetite would be for light rail. I've had some talks with some people that know a lot about transportation. I'm not going to name any names at this point, but two things were pointed out to me that would make rail feasible here. One is wide public support and the fact that RAFTA is self-funded. The state would look very favorably on both of those. So, yeah, the short story is I'd like to see some of that money spent on some polling to see what the valley's appetite would be for light rail to connect our valley from Glenwood to Aspen.
On the corridor, the Rio Grande?
I think the Rio Grande right-of-way works from the lower valley up to Basalt, and then it would probably have to follow Highway 82 from there up. I'm not an expert, but
Right,
it
okay.
seems like that's where most of the population not on the Rio Grande right away from Mid-Valley up Valley.
Let's go around the room with anyone who hasn't really chimed in yet. Jeff, you have thoughts on this? No, just still listening. Christine?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. Addressing the questions, I don't think we should be expanding EOTC funds beyond the scope, the current scope. There are too many ideas in the Upper Valley right now that need those high-impact dollars without diluting those funds. So I'd like to see those stay within our region and serve the constituents who voted for this. Right now, the idea of these projects seems a little bit like throwing spaghetti at the wall to me, and that might be on purpose. But some of these proposed ideas, I think, would be easier to discuss if we had even a potential budget or the feasibility of actually pulling any of these off. So before I throw out a bunch of ideas, that's where I'm at with the future projects.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd respond to that briefly. It sounds like you might have an interest, like Patty brought up earlier, of you need some brainstorming among this group for, having a strategy moving forward into the future that might be a multi-year strategy. Does that
Yeah.
sound right?
Yeah, and one thought actually that I forgot to say, with the Transportation Coalition, we all received that entire packet, and there's a list of ideas that some of us in the room spent 9 months working on. We should be putting some of the budget, I think, toward that, since people have spent a lot of time and energy on that, and those are feasible and logical next steps.
And I think what we need is, to Rachel's point, can we use the money for that? Or would you need a separate pot? So we can come back with some of that information for you all.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to me, there's goals are fairly clear, or should be. What we all want is reduced traffic, reduced congestion, and then goes down into strategies from there. And so I totally agree with that, whether it's strategies or goal. The two have to be out there up front and hopefully accomplish that. Britta?
Yeah, I think I don't really have any additional new ideas to contribute. I really appreciate the Transportation Coalition, and I think that, while we have that information, weaving that into some strategic planning and kind of understanding how we can, to Tom's point, narrow the scope a little bit so that we can make good use of the funds we have. And, I always appreciate doing some future studies for additional opportunities to just get cars off the roads too, so.
Alyssa, I think you're up.
Nothing additional at this time. I'm just listening to what everyone has to say and.
Okay. Yeah, well, for me, it is still focusing, similar to Tom and Christine, on the Upper Valley with our funds that we have available. And I would like to get a sense, if we're doing follow-up meetings from this one, of, operating versus capital. What things could we do that, would have to be sustained because they're operating if we're doing, and what things are capital that are the transit center that are kind of one-off and that may need more capital than was original. We should take that original $6 million and add interest to it and compound it over a few years. Come up with a new number.
I notice we're earning $555,000 a year in interest every year, so there's a lot of money in there.
There is something there. And, I think it sounds silly, but a goal is always to complete projects. Have they really been closed out entirely that we've been working on already as much as possible? I will just simply have to point out that ballot question 175 is coming out specifically in response to the Front Range Rail and in response to the Steamboat Rail. And it redefines what transportation is for those dollars so it can narrow it down to roads and bridges, automobile, fossil fuel only. So, I'd love to see that sort of stuff happening, but this is why the Colorado Contractors Association is putting their hands in to grab all the transportation money right now.
Just on that, on the Proposition 175, would it be appropriate this meeting to get a poll, get a vote, and that the EOT sends a letter?
We could ask about that. The county has already, RAFTA has already, which I've handed
It
out
all
to some of
helps.
the
It all
City of
helps.
Aspen. We could do that. We could, just make a motion and have the drafters work with county staff and city staff. Would you like to make that a motion? Oh, I guess we can't. We're in a retreat. We're not at a meeting that we can.
Okay, I guess I can't.
Say I'll go and do that?
Yeah. We're not making any motions. It's a retreat. Okay. For me, I did look through a number of the things that you had as future strategic options. And for me, it comes back to the goals of how do we reduce traffic and how do we utilize Brush Creek as much as possible. But, we have these opportunities in front of us now with travel behavior. And I think the Down Valley community, through clean energy, they are starting on a TDM management programs there. But there's a lot of things on this list we cannot use EOTC money for. And so I think that this would be an important thing to think about. And it goes back to what Francie asked of, well, how much would it cost to do some of these things? And for us to all consider as we do our fall budgets, are there things we want to support in conjunction with EOTC that would have to come out of our general fund and that we would have to find other transportation dollars to advance? So I think that that's part of it, because again, that large list of accomplishments shows what we did individually as communities and what we've done together. And this would be an opportunity to say, this is what we can do together because this EOTC money allows us to, and this is what we can do working together on the side out of other pots of money. But I wouldn't want to hold up anything that really seems to work for another 2 years till we have a ballot question that tells us we have money to spend on it.
So, thank you for that, and I know everybody's excited to get to the projects, but first, I think I've heard a lot of feedback on this topic, so thank you. If there's any other lingering items, we can certainly get to that, but I want to move on to governance structure
I want
briefly.
to get there too,
Yeah.
because we don't know how we're going to get any of this done if we don't know how we're going to govern it.
Yep.
I think, going back to Rachel's idea, I think this would be a great suggestion, that each jurisdiction submit to the county attorney a list of questions, can we use the money, where can't we use the money? So and I think then the county attorney has a list from each jurisdiction. He can say, you can't use it here, yes, you can use it there. And then that would help, I think, define where we can use monies in the future. So I would like to suggest that our transportation staff reach out to their individual jurisdictions and try and formulate a list to submit to the county attorney.
Great, very good. Thank you, Patty.
Oh, and one other thing really quick. Use of Brush Creek lot, the county now owns it. We're in the process of beginning a management plan. So any future uses, there's a lot of ideas out there. Limited amount of space, but it is space. So we'd have to bring in some considerations of if we used it more for transportation or for airport parking or for, if there's some people that want us to put housing out, there's a lot of issues, but we're in the process of, and I'm looking at Brian Pettit, of starting that management plan. So I think that'll be part of the discussion, so you know.
And look at the second level of parking. Yeah, make sure you don't preclude that. They're going to need it in 25 years.
Something that we can introduce into our discussion about the management plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Okay, so thank you for that conversation. What'd you say? Oh, I'm sorry.
Susan, yeah, we'll call on you again. Thank you. Can you unmute?
Thanks.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, just another thought, because the current mission for EOTC is managing and reducing congestion in the Upper Valley, which is basically the goal of the Transportation Coalition as well. So I feel like those two goals align really well. And part of the next step for that the Transportation Coalition is looking at is modeling the various cures for congestion to see how they would work specific to our valley. So I think that modeling piece, I wonder if that would be an EOTC, if that would be within the scope. So that's one thing I think we could possibly look at.
Yeah, that's a good question to ask the attorneys. Can it be used for modeling? And the challenge is the 21st Century Coalition had come up with some solutions that may not fit with what Colorado Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration feel they can do on a two-lane road. They're not as the goals of the EOTC, the goals of the EOTC. And,
Right.
and traffic congestion. So that would be another one for us to send forward.
Thank you.
Thank
On
you.
your list.
And back to you.
Okay, thank you. I
Brian.
don't know what just happened. I lost my,
You timed out for a second.
oh, is that what it, maybe that's right.
You're done.
Oh, we've lost everything.
Coming back up.
Oh.
Technology.
Let's
I'm
see.
going to use the restroom. You get that chair for a second. I'll be back in a moment.
I need,
I'm going to be back in a second.
okay.
I'm going to continue chairing.
Do we want to just take a quick
Non welcome back to the Elected Officials Transportation Committee work session. It's about 4:10, and we are scheduled to go to about 6 o'clock. Ryan, take it away.
Okay, thanks. So I just had the transportation staffs come up. And I think just a little bit of clarification, because I think they have been in communication with RI on what can be funded and what can't be funded. We definitely heard a lot of different ideas from you all, so I think that was, a good effort on some of the different ideas that are out there. But as it relates to the 21st Century Coalition, some of those projects, as well as sort of congestion reduction projects that might be outside of the scope of what they've worked on, I think there is a limitation on those. And we can, again, bring back more detail on that. But Sam, did you want to?
Yeah, I just, well, partially for the purpose of staff direction going forward. I just kind of want to restate what we've heard and make sure that I'm hearing it correctly and that we're hearing it correctly as staff. First, we did have some discussion about what geographic boundary there is now. The exact language is for the purpose, for the authorization for the taxes is for the purpose of increasing and improving the public mass transportation system within the Roaring Fork Valley. So everything from Pitkin County all the way down to Glenwood, I think we would all agree is the Roaring Fork Valley. Yeah. So what we've been hearing, I think from the majority of folks that have spoken, not everybody, but the majority, is that we may want to restrict that, even that language a little bit, to not be the Roaring Fork Valley, but to be Pitkin County, but expand it to not just be increasing and improving the public mass transportation system, to be able to do some other things. Now, I will preface and say I am not an attorney, and I do think that if we're talking specific projects of the 21st Century Coalition or anything else that we have as ideas, we would certainly want to go to the attorney with those. But I just want to make sure that that's what we're hearing, and that we're of the knowledge that may change the language, the enabling language. And then lastly, I do want to just specify that list that we have was kind of, those were ideas that staff had put forward. They're just ideas. They're not meant to be like a list of things to choose from. Just some things to kind of get creative juices flowing. They're far from saying, hey, these are things that should be done or could be done. It's just, these are the types of transportation projects people are thinking about, working about. So hopefully that.
Yeah, I would just modify your recap a little bit. I don't think people were saying limit to Pitkin County versus the Roaring Fork Valley. I think they were saying don't expand into the I-70 corridor per se.
I think that's correct.
But yeah, so not cutting back.
Roaring Fork Valley.
To say Pitkin County only, but we're staying with the Roaring Fork Valley, just not expanding further.
Okay, that's great, because that definitely makes it more clear.
And everybody has a different opinion, but I would not want to veer too far from mass transportation projects. I think there's still a lot to do within our original scope in the Roaring Fork Valley.
Yeah, I don't think we got to the point of saying there should be a ballot question to change its uses yet.
No, not at all. But I just, if we're going towards some of these carpooling projects, microtransit, some of the other things like asphalt, some of the things that we heard, all those are going to require some changes.
Well, that would be a question for the attorney, because I'm not clear if we're limited to mass transportation or, as Susan was saying, is part of our goals reducing congestion. Those are related, but they're not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can do a ride-sharing software. I don't know. That's a question.
Yeah. We're going to have to get formal opinions written so we can all see it, as opposed to the telephone system of through him to staff, to us, to our constituents.
It does seem like the Downtowner and Basalt Connect and those things, though, probably could be considered mass transit.
Yeah, if they,
No,
well.
they're not.
I don't know.
I'm not the lawyer.
He already said no. Rye already said no when
he
they
did?
asked this year, yes. As a matter of fact, because they weren't connecting with the mass transit system. They were taking people from residential neighborhoods, maybe to downtown.
To Willits.
Or to another
They're
neighborhood.
reducing congestion, but they weren't necessarily tied to mass
Some of them
transportation.
do, some of them don't.
Yeah.
So I
Some
think
make
what we are hearing then is that you do want a sort of formal interpretation from Rye. You're not looking to change the geography of where we can spend the money. And then you're not ready to make a decision on whether you want to expand the use of the money.
No, we don't have the information to do that right now. Again, just asking what are the capital projects that each of our communities might be considering. I don't know what those are. You know, we pay a certain amount for the Woody Creek transit system. Maybe if Phillips Curve goes forward and is expanded, that's going to need more transit service. I know the Crystal River Valley has always asked for transit services there. So, you know, until we really can look at what we would be potentially defunding or no longer interested in funding in pursuit of some of these new things, I don't think we've reached that point to be able to say that. I mean, and as I said, how much does it cost to develop a car share app? If it's $300,000 and we all contribute and make it happen, is that easier than trying to go to a ballot question and change the uses of this tax? You know, so we have to ask what the projects are and why we'd want to change it and to what. And I just don't know that we're there yet.
So if I could ask a process question that is a direction to me for preparing this list of projects that will run by our attorney. So each of the 3 jurisdictions will submit a list of potential ideas, projects to me.
Let me ask the chairs and the
Is that
mayor,
where
are
we're
you
going?
comfortable submitting a list, or, I mean, you want to generate it from the EOTC today?
This could include ideas from the coalition as well, since you all, some of you all sit.
Patty had said each jurisdiction should present their ideas
No,
and
that's not what I said. I said each jurisdiction should present a list of where we can use the money, where we can't, not specific projects. We have not been presented with the coalition's results, the BOCC. I wouldn't even know where to begin, and that's not part of my discussion here today. I'm hoping that we'll have that discussion in the future. But I just think the question that Francie stemmed from where we've been using the monies, Rachel's saying as to where can we or where can't we use the money. So can we use the money outside the boundaries? Can we use the money for an app? Can we use, those are the questions, not specific. Can we, you know, it's not, my concern for a list is not as specific as actual projects, but where and where we can't use the
Yeah.
monies.
What types of projects?
That makes it a
So
little
again,
vague.
back to Linda's question, do you want to hear it from the EOTC of the questions or individual lists from each of the 3 jurisdictions? We could do that. We can send you a list. Is Snowmass comfortable with that? Is the county comfortable with that?
You want us to all send individual lists?
That's what's being asked of us. That's what Patty has suggested, that we send lists to the attorney to ask what we can and can't spend the money on.
I mean, but I just feel like it's so overlapping. Like, why wouldn't we
It
just?
will be, then he can just say, okay, 3 jurisdictions want to know where it can't be. But at
We'll-
least,
we'll
there
each
might
do
be,
it.
you might
Patty
come
will
up
be
with an
happy.
idea we didn't
Whatever
come
you
up
guys
with.
want to do.
The other thing we talked about, which might kind of get to the same answer, is there's this idea of having some strategic plan, for lack of a better word, that would have a 5-year horizon on it. In that process, you all will be coming up with ideas that can then be vetted through the attorney's office.
I would hate to spend the time developing a 5-year plan to be told that 3 of the crucial elements can't be funded.
No, we
You
would
know,
know that.
You'll have the
we should find this
interpretation.
out first.
We should have found it out.
Which is what you would do if you submitted a list. You would know that you couldn't use it on X, so why would you put X in your strategic plan if you couldn't?
Exactly.
That will come before we would do any strategic plan. Good point, Rachel, but that would be common sense, I think.
Thank you.
As a next step, I believe that as much as we collaborate and talk about all of our ideas, and that's where this list came from, we all could could come up with our top and sit down with our attorney and take a first pass at the things that we already have as ideas, just to test.
Sure, there's no reason why not. You can send them in, we'll all send them in individually. Ryan can check them off that 4 people submitted the same thing, and we'll see what he says. And maybe 1 or 2 of us will have something unique. So yes, please feel free to submit. It's just we've got to have this as formal, again, for our constituents as much as for our knowledge, to say, no, we cannot spend the money on that. Yes, we can spend it on this.
And I will bring that back with his opinions to the July 23rd meeting, and then we could talk more about.
If it comes out before then, that would be great. You could send it to us individually, and we could all take a look at it, and our councils could discuss it. It doesn't have to wait till July, the next EOTC meeting, is how I would look at it. Just when he's had time to prepare it.
At least we don't think, depending on the governance structure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we need to get to that, don't we?
Yeah,
Okay. Do you feel like you have
yeah.
enough direction? Okay. Okay. Moving on,
Just a quick thing about the next meeting, before we have the next meeting. It would be really great if at the next meeting, we had the budget presented to us and the answers to any questions about how we can spend our money, so that we don't repeat these kind of conversations. Right, we have all that ahead of time. That would be really great.
That's the goal.
Current budget, the 2026 budget.
Yeah.
we will have that. Okay, moving on to the governance structure then. So this has come up, obviously, the IGA right now, it does require that a quorum of each of the 3 jurisdictions is present in order to take a vote. And if that is not, if any of the jurisdictions do not have a quorum at one of these meetings, there is a separate option that staff can go individually to those jurisdictions' formal meeting and ask for a vote. There have been instances where having a quorum of each of the jurisdictions can be difficult to get. There's a lot of people in the room. Obviously, we have examples throughout the valley as it relates to, say, RAFTA or APSHA, where you have a few of the members that participate in those. And so I think the question today is it working today as you have the full membership for each of the jurisdictions' governing bodies, or would you want to have a discussion about having fewer, and that could be any number of combinations? So, you know, you could have 1 member, 2 members, 3 members. I mean, ideally, you do have an odd number of folks, and that way, you know, you don't end in a tie break. So there's a consideration there, but it could make the EOTC business a little more flexible throughout the year, but it would require also for us to do a new IGA. Linda brought up an example to me during break that we have a question to bring back to you all, which wasn't on this agenda, but about the buttermilk project. And so it's going to require, in order for us to act on that, for her to go to each of your jurisdictions to present and talk about that, and hopefully in a timely manner to be able to get back to the contractor. So we're not quite as nimble as maybe we'd want to be always. And so opening it up to you all, unless there's any other thoughts.
The specific question is a bit of a conundrum, because we have a design for the buttermilk at-grade pedestrian crossings. We put it out to bid. The bids we got came in twice over the estimate that we had come up with. And I need to go back to you all and ask for that budget increase. The situation we're asking about right now is that the window to get on 3 different agendas, come and ask you, and then go back to the bid process, could delay the project to the point where we can't do it this year.
Yeah.
We probably can if I can get on all 3 agendas in the next 2 weeks. But it's a problem in being nimble about being able to do these things, because next year the construction costs will probably go up.
I find it unfortunate that we didn't know that, and we could not have added that to this agenda now. You know, we're all in the same room. We could have done it that way if they had come in and or it was a timeliness matter beforehand. I can be okay with the idea of subcommittees meeting if we then have regular meetings of the larger group, at least a couple times a year. But I can say that from the diversity in the room already, any one of our boards might have trouble picking 2 people who actually, you know, maybe represent 2 different views on the board of things. And I don't want anyone to later feel left out of a conversation, or that subcommittee of 6 come back to the larger group of 15 and then feel like they're totally shot down. So, you know, I'm okay with it, but I just don't know how it'll play out. Maybe we'll have to find out. Alyssa, you have a...
No, I'm just listening to it.
Tom?
I appreciate what you're saying. We get, 15 of us in the room. Problem is, there's 15 of us in the room and nothing ever gets done.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be in favor of something like a steering committee or something with maybe 2 people from each jurisdiction, maybe a member, an alternate or something, I don't know, where they can meet more regularly and really get a little more in depth on these issues, working with staff, report back to our different jurisdictions and on an updating kind of process. So we really could start moving some things forward, because you know, we get 15 people in the room and we meet a couple times a year. I mean, it's like we just don't get anywhere. And I think it's an important group. We should get somewhere.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I can understand that. My concern is if you have, you know, somebody you appoint and an alternate, and then they have to go back to their own board and make a decision, then it has to come back to the subcommittee again. Are we just, you know, delaying things even more? One of the concerns I've had, and it's been growing over the last couple of years, is we make a commitment to attend these meetings, at least 3 of us from each jurisdiction need to be here, and then people change their plans or their minds. So sometimes we don't have quorums, and then, you know, Linda has to go back to each individual jurisdiction. I think if we make a commitment to have 3 people at our EOTC meetings, we will get things done. It's just that we don't. I mean, Snowmass has 3, thank you for being here.
And 1 online.
And 1 online, yeah.
We have
she's
4 out
online.
of 5.
Yeah, so if we could make that commitment to have a minimum of 3 of each jurisdiction at each EOTC meeting, we can move things forward with that quorum of each jurisdiction. It's just sometimes we
I mean,
don't.
technically we can. We have the people who make the votes, but the problem is just, I think the setting of 15, we get together 3 or 4 times a year and we don't get anything done.
It's going to solve it if you have a subcommittee that then has to go to a meeting and then go back to their own jurisdiction and then come back to the subcommittee again.
I think what they're trying to get to is that the subcommittee members, when they go back to their jurisdictions, could at least test the ideas and see what they feel like, and be able to meet more often than the 3 or 4 times a year to be able to move things forward. Yes, it may add a little bit of an extra step, and the one thing I wrote down next to that is they probably would be subject to open meeting laws. And so, you know, some people kind of think subcommittee, we'll go out to Public Works and meet in the back office, but, you know, it would still be as noticed and as
which is fine.
as it should be, because even just 2 of each body would still be a quorum of the EOTC.
If you get that steering committee or subcommittee, whatever it is, to meet every month, for example, you could really get more discussion, you get more substantive moving of the issues forward.
I think you're going to be one of the first members.
Yeah, good luck finding a day a month that you can have.
I think I may be the only member, but.
So I think one of the things that we would like to get to tonight is, and let me just say, I think you're, Rachel, with what you said about the meetings being noticed or not. I mean, that's certainly not a goal to be in a back room.
Oh, no, I didn't think so.
We'll have all of the meetings as public meetings. I think that's just a good idea. But I do think does it make sense for you all, and I don't know that I'm hearing this, but to have some subset of your respective bodies that come together and they actually have decision-making authority? Or do you not want them to have decision-making authority? And I think what you're hearing from staff is it could make it more nimble. Alternatively, what I heard from a few of you perhaps is that some of you might be left in the dark. We do have other examples in the valley where I think there is some decision-making authority that does occur, and then the information is shared out in public meetings. So I think we would like to try to get some of that information from you tonight on do you have a subset that has decision-making authority or not, as a first question.
The question becomes decision-making authority to spend the EOTC money?
Yes.
Okay. No. I do not think you can have two members of a 5-person board make a decision to spend money and two members from each of our boards to spend taxpayer money without it being a full board quorum. That's why I was thinking the subcommittee can meet, flesh out plans, say why this is beneficial, why this would work well, but then it still has to come back to the full EOTC to spend $6 million on this or $4 million on that. I don't think we can do that. That's me. Do other people feel the same about wanting their full board to weigh in on spending authority? And Susan, we'll unmute you, and you get to weigh in first. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I think these committee or smaller groups meeting more often or a smaller group meeting more often could be a good solution. I think we still need to continue to have these quarterly meetings with everyone there. And so, I mean, maybe that would mean more meetings for some, but not for others. But I agree that I think it would be hard for 2 members of a council to make spending decisions. But I also think in either case, what I think would actually help us move things forward is to have an appointed or elected permanent chair for the year. So one of our elected officials that from it might make more sense from the commissioners from Pitkin County, just because of working with Linda might be easier. But like the Board of Health has a chair for the year. And I just think if you have one chair that serves for the entire year, it would help push things forward. It would help really kind of organize us so that we could make some progress on things we want to do.
Thank you. Those are good suggestions.
I agree. I think it's a good suggestion.
I have a question. How would that, and because we have a chair of Northwest COG, we have a chair of RAFTA, who chairs the meetings, but how would that make things more efficient? Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't.
Well, that chair would meet with Linda more regularly. They could potentially meet with this smaller group, more often than quarterly. And just, it's somebody who's accountable for what we decide we want to do. And so, we set some goals. We put in a few tasks to get to those goals. And then that person is helping move that forward in between meetings. It's going to take a little time besides just sitting down, at these quarterly meetings. But I just think it would really help us as a group get things done.
There's also been an idea, I think it's maybe worked a little bit, where you had somebody from each jurisdiction, not just one person that was perhaps working with Linda, but you could kind of get a sense from each jurisdiction if you had a representative member there as well. And I don't know, Linda.
You could have a steering committee, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this subcommittee idea sounded like to me, was a little bit of a steering committee, try to vet ideas, try to give some clarification or direction when needed, or say, go ahead to apply for a grant when we're not. But it's not a committee that says, we're allocating the remaining $18 million to Down Valley RAFTA. They're not making spending decisions. That would have to come back to the larger board, I would think.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Sam? And then,
Personally, for efficiency's sake, I've always thought getting information-only memos from the EOTC to all 3 jurisdictions would be nice from time to time. And then secondly, before these EOTC meetings, I've always thought it'd be nice if each jurisdiction had their own work session with specific questions each time, so we came much more prepared to make progress. I think those work sessions would be the subcommittee meetings, and the EOTC staff could dilute the informations from each of those work sessions so that when we did meet all together, we made a decision.
so just to be clear, though, you're talking about the work sessions being among the council members or the BOCC before the EOTC meeting, and the subcommittee talking to their own boards and commissions.
I'm not sure if we need a subcommittee if we
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it
but
this
I think it
way.
would be that's kind of like a subcommittee.
That would, at the very least, make these meetings more productive.
Yeah, specific questions, get the specific answers. And each
There's been a
board is
time in the
very
past
different.
when that was how the process went. We would always just, pre-meet the EOTC meetings.
They would dilute it, we would all meet together, it would be presented, this is what you guys basically agreed on, and we would make decisions and we'd all move forward.
Yeah, a little more fast. So anyhow, one way or the other, that's a suggestion for our next meeting, is that the agenda get out sooner, that individual boards, doesn't have to be Linda running it, it could be the individual boards themselves, discuss what is going to be the EOT agenda before the meeting.
We do that. We do that.
We do that.
We do that too.
We have done that in the past, but I don't think we did not get this agenda in time to put it into a work session beforehand. But let's just leave it, let it lie. We would like more information-only memos in between meetings as updates on things that have been happening, and to make sure the agendas get out timely enough that the individual boards can discuss them as needed.
I mean, I have a question about whether one of us, a group of us, this whole committee idea should help set the agendas. Or, help, ask to put things on the agendas.
Just like for reference, Susan, several weeks before the RAFTA meetings, Greg and I, as chair and vice chair, meet with RAFTA staff to work through the agenda. They set sort of an agenda, then we talk about it, and we, sometimes things get rearranged or other things come up, or if we want something added.
Yeah, and
yeah, I think that communication is valuable.
Yeah.
That has not been the policy with EOTC per se, because the chair or whoever's chairing the meeting changes each meeting when the location changes. And then B, it's been more of our transportation staff that meet and tell us and develop this agenda with some feedback. I don't know if this agenda was presented to you, Jeff, to take a look at before, and myself as well, but just seeing the overall agenda, it looked solid. I didn't have any changes to it. But so this sort of thing is happening.
I think that's the advantage of what Susan is saying, is you have a chair for the year.
Right,
There's
I
some
agree.
continuity to keep the agenda moving, the issues moving forward.
I know, I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah,
Francie?
I was just going to weigh in on the governance thing. I like the idea of having one person from each jurisdiction and one alternate possibly meet more regularly than the whole group, and one chairperson, and that would be one of those people preferably. And then they could work through some of the items that they feel need to be discussed, get some details, and then before the meeting, they would come back to each board with what they had done at their last 2 times together between meetings, or however often it is, once a month, whatever, which would mean 2 meetings and then a whole meeting, and then 2 meetings and then a whole meeting. And it would be a set time, like APCHA has a set time, RAFTA, the River District, so you know where you're supposed to be when. And I think that would really help key us up for getting things done at our meetings.
Rachel, real quick, this board how it operates today used to work in the past. One of the problems we had about attendance is our lives have gotten busier, our committee appointments have gotten busier. So, on Thursdays, I have X, Y, and Z meetings, every other Thursday, or every Tuesday, we have work sessions. And so it's difficult finding those times now because we all have other committee appointments that keep us busy. So if you could find a day that would work, because again, I don't want people saying, oh, I can't wait on that Thursday. Can we meet on that Tuesday? No, we have work sessions. So it's really difficult. Not that we couldn't work that out, but let's face it up front. We're all busy.
It's going to be a challenge. But let me go back to Francie's well-articulated idea there. Is there a nod of the heads or straw poll to move forward with a subcommittee structure of regular and an alternate from each board that will set up their own regular meeting agenda schedule based on their schedules and report back to their own individual boards every couple meetings or so as there's something to report. And the EOTC itself will still meet to hear from all of that, and as member jurisdictions, at least twice a year, or should we say 3 times? Right now, we're on a quarterly schedule. 3 times or twice a year?
Why don't I just might make the suggestion, please give us direction of potentially seeing how that works, and then figuring out how many times the whole board should meet, and come back to you with a suggestion.
Well, I think the whole board is here now, and we all kind of want to participate, and you're essentially letting go of a lot right now. I don't want to walk back and find out, oh, we're only meeting once a year, and
I don't think it should be once a year.
yeah, I know. Well, then I'm cutting it down from 4 to 2.
Let's make the decision on the board right now.
Okay.
How often the board meets.
Not have somebody come back to us from.
So can I offer another suggestion?
Wait, we're having a conversation, Pay. Perhaps 3 times a year do people feel that would be a little less to try to schedule hard, but it would still be frequent enough, every 4 months or so?
3?
I think either 3 or 4 a year. I want to go into those.
Yeah, I'd say in the
Yeah, me
spirit
too.
of collaboration, I think 3 or 4 at least. And I think, the subcommittee may or may not work, but better structure for these meetings in general may be the most productive route.
I agree with that.
May I
Patty?
now? Thank you.
Yeah, please.
I think that I think having a chair is not a bad idea. I would suggest, because of people being committed to other things, you do a chair and 2 vice chairs, so you have membership from each jurisdiction that got together to meet, rather than creating a committee with a alternate and all that, where it's going to be difficult. So why don't we start with that, having somebody appointed as a chair, and probably Picken County, because of the EOTC and how we manage it, and then have a vice chair from each of the other jurisdictions, and they can figure out a time frame when they could meet, either bi-monthly, twice a month, once a month, or if, and something came up, they could get together, the 3 of them, with staff.
Yeah, so those are the subcommittee members.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
with
I
that-
like that.
Then the
That's a good
meetings
idea.
are with the transportation staff.
Yes, thank you. Newly
I
defined.
assume those would not have to be public meetings.
Yes, it would be.
Why? There's not a
Well,
quorum.
if you have more than 2, 3, one of each jurisdiction, that's of the elected officials' transportation committee meetings. That's why the 21st Century Committee meetings were all public, because there was 2 from Snowmass, 2 from Aspen, 2 from Picken County. They were public meetings, and they had to be open.
This says right here, a quorum is 3 members per jurisdiction.
Yeah, so if we
This
only
was a
had one
different
per
opinion by our
jurisdiction.
attorneys. This is why they became open meetings.
Well, we could ask.
Wait, let's have
That's the
clarification on
Ask
that.
Rye whether.
And the question becomes, though, do we want private meetings that the public doesn't go to? I'm not interested in that.
Well, Rachel, let's just find out what a quorum would entail. We can still make them public if we choose to, but I think if it's mandated, we don't have a choice. But let's just find out and get clarity on what constitutes a quorum. I don't believe that one member me constitutes a quorum, even if I'm sitting with Britta and Sam, is that a quorum? I don't know. Let's get that clarified. That's all I'm
Kind of
asking.
like our agenda review meetings. I mean,
Yeah.
we have our chair and our vice chair and our staff at our agenda review meetings, but they're not public.
But you're not a majority of that board, that individual board. Again, I'm only coming back to what they told us when Christine and I were both signed up, and Greg and Francie were signed up for the EOT, for the 21st century, and it became they have to be public meetings.
Well, let's find out, because
And
we're only
so-
about
Well,
one
let's just
person.
make those public.
Yeah, I'm not worried
Let's
about
make 'em
it
public
being a public
anyway.
meeting.
Well,
I
the
don't know
only
why
issue
we're
is
trying
that
to look for
makes,
a private meeting.
it just makes it a little bit more difficult to schedule meetings quickly. Yeah, right, yeah. But,
It's just setting an agenda.
yeah, right, exactly. Okay.
We'll come back with that interpretation also.
Thank you.
Did you have something to say?
As regarding, the EOTC pays for and manages construction projects. And-
What was the last few words you just said?
We pay for and manage construction projects,
Okay.
as an example. And like your individual agencies or RAFTA, and those of you who get to meet more often to respond to things like bids that come in over twice the budget. It's a problem. It's a problem for when we are trying to keep to a schedule of a construction project, and we wouldn't have time to wait for a quarterly meeting to get that approval to do something with the budget. I think that I would like to get an opinion from Rye about maybe a bigger contingency fund in my budget so that I can respond to things like higher concrete costs or bids going way out of the stratosphere, but trying to still keep a project on schedule is kind of my dilemma with this. Is not meeting often enough to keep up with
Yeah.
issues like that.
You said the cost came back twice. I mean, contingency budget maybe 10% or something, I think we could figure that out. But twice, you would have to come back and get authorization. And you could come to each individual group, each week, we all meet at least weekly and get approval from each group if it's urgent.
It is.
Yeah, I understand, but this is first we've heard of it.
Well, it only happened this week.
I'm going to second what Tom is saying here. If something we all approved and we kind of had to swallow hard and it was $3 million and now it's come back at $6, we might have to kill the project. We have to
It's
say
a
that's not
policy
worth
decision.
doing for
Yeah.
that much money. So I don't know that, giving away the authority to spend everything in the budget to a subcommittee or other people, it's just, or even yourself as staff, you could maybe create something where if it's up to 20% more,
Yeah.
yes. But, when it's doubled, that brings the whole project into question as to whether it's worth doing.
I think Tom's suggestion is good, that you should come to each individual thing. But before our next meeting, or at our next meeting, I'd like to know how we could be 100% off on an estimate. I mean, that just seems
Tariffs?
very, I'm sorry, but
That's what we're hearing.
100% off is, something's wrong. So I'd like to hear about that.
So
Patty?
I think having an increased level of discretionary budget for EOTC to spend for incidents that are minor. But you're right. I think we would be crazy to say, oh yeah, triple the project and we're okay with it without bringing it back to us. I think Linda might be asking for just a little more wiggle room in there.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
So I think that should be part of the budget process moving forward. As far as what's on our plate right now with this cost, we might have to add on to one of our work sessions, a special meeting to move it forward. I mean, there are some things we can do as individual jurisdictions to move it forward in a timely manner, and we just need to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's, going back to this idea of a subcommittee, I mean, Linda could come right away, call a meeting of the subcommittee, we could discuss, understand it, come back to our respective groups and fill everybody in, and we'd be much closer to a solution than
In a quarterly
nothing.
meeting.
There's no communication right now, yeah.
I agree.
It's a good place to start, Tom.
So I think what we're hearing from you all is the creation of a subcommittee, so a member from each jurisdiction, and those 3 folks would be able to get together with
We heard
staff.
alternates as well, so that they can stay on schedule, because
I don't know that we left with alternates, so clarification for that would be good.
A chair and 2 alternates. Is that what we said?
No, we
No,
said
a chair,
2 vice chairs.
And 2 vice chairs.
Oh, vice chairs. Sorry. Yeah.
and maybe each one has an alternate in case of absence. I don't know.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But only
It was
that.
just as hard to schedule those 3 people with one person sick, or another person sick, or
Yeah.
another person traveling, unless you have alternates.
Yeah.
So you have a chair, you have, from each jurisdiction, there are 2 folks.
Right.
But you will have a chair and 2 alternates, ultimately, that work with staff to set
No,
agendas.
You will have 2 people from each board, a total of 6.
Oh, you're
And-
thinking that they go to each meeting?
And they have an alternate. Well, they don't,
wasn't
the
aware.
alternate may not have to go if the regular member can go,
Right,
but there is an alternate. So there'll be a regular and an alternate, and from the regulars, they'll pick the chair.
Now, I would say if having the alternate kicks it into a public meeting situation, which cuts down on the flexibility of being able to meet real quickly, I wouldn't have the alternates. So I think
But they could fill in, but they wouldn't be at every meeting.
Yes.
Right.
That's my understanding. They would
Mine
not
too.
be at every meeting. So you'd have basically 3 electeds
corrected.
attending a meeting with staff that could help with agenda setting.
And one of them is the chair of the EOTC.
Yes.
That's right. And then 2
That
vice
sounds good.
chairs. We will follow up with an interpretation from the attorney as to whether or not that is a quorum. And then there will be a minimum of 3 meetings, but still possibly 4 per year of the entire.
I would keep it as 4, at least for a year. Let's just see how it all works.
I agree.
Okay, I'm not going to argue it.
Yeah.
And a real quick point of clarification I want everyone to know, Rye had planned to be here, our county attorney had a family issue, so that's why he was going to maybe join us later. So I just wanted you to know.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's helpful, Patty. We all appreciate that. I want to look forward to the write-up. I think that something that's going to be important is that the information that the subcommittee is going to be discussing or thinking about has to get out in a timely fashion. Because if I was trying to represent what Sam and Christine and John all think, I need to be able to tell them what's going to be on my agenda that I'm going to be discussing coming up. So, that's part of this loop. We're creating a larger or more complex loop about getting information out. Okay.
Understood. Okay. So we're good on the governance. We can bring that back to you all at a subsequent meeting.
Just the write-up of what we just discussed.
We'll need to amend the IGA ultimately if we're.
Yeah, because it'll be,
I see.
because that's not connected to the ballot language. That was
That's
just
right.
And
adopted
Rachel?
among all of us. Yes, Patty?
We'll still keep our regular meetings 4 times a year with a quorum of 3 members from each jurisdiction. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Can I just make a comment about the regular meetings?
Please.
It used to be that they were consistently the same time every year, so you could have them marked off in your calendar. What I found frustrating about the calendar invites that just went out is it was like totally different than anything I expected. I'm out of town for most of the dates. I changed my plans today to make sure I could be here. It would be really helpful
We stuck to
to
it.
also think about when you're scheduling them in relation to some of the other boards we sit on, because that is a big thing too. Like for Patty and I, it fell a lot on the COG meetings. So we're all the way over in Silverthorne, coming back here, then sitting in another 3-hour meeting. So I know we can't avoid every conflict, but it would just be helpful to have consistency, that it's the 4th Thursday of the month of October and March and whatever they used to be, so that we can have them in, we can know in advance. It would be very helpful, because that's how we used to do it.
And you
Thank
can
you.
ask us for our other schedules, because we usually have the COG schedule set up a year in advance.
Yeah.
And
then
there's
it gives-
usually Northwest Council, well, you're COG, but I mean, then there's CML, CCI,
Yes.
CCAT, the other meetings. Okay. Great.
we'll work on that.
Thanks.
Nobody can get sick or take a vacation.
Okay, and then lastly,
No
I think
honeymoons.
the one that we had put off were the ideas for the actual projects. Those were just, as we heard earlier from Sam, just simply ideas, things for you all to think about, things that might get you thinking about different projects we could take on. So I might ask staff to kind of walk through some of these, and then we'd like to get just a discussion going on that, and we can keep a list, and I think that would ultimately come back with a, when we get into some strategic discussions. So,
Okay.
Linda or?
We had talked, we had asked each of our staff people to come up just with some ideas of projects going forward based on our own work, our own goals, some of the feedback from the coalition meetings that people attended. One of them is the idea of having a 1 to 5 year planning strategy, much as you all did when you created the comprehensive transportation plan, Valley Plan, and a set of projects such as the near-term transit improvement program that we're now finishing that up. And then those projects would be planned at a strategic planning session. We also, our next one is to fund regional transit and mobility service gaps and initiatives beyond the county and through the valley. Sam might want to elaborate on that. Regional projects such as the carpooling app, creation, support, and maintenance, and figuring out management-wise where that would live. A regional or county-wide parking management plan. We need to, and this is actually part of our 2026 work plan, but we hadn't figured out what it was going to look like. Collaborating throughout the valley and with the tourism organizations about transportation during the airport closure in 2027. We're going to have a lot of construction vehicles up in the valley, people driving in. Tourism's going to probably suffer from it. Commuters will be in traffic more with construction vehicles. It's probably going to be a big mess. So how we strategically tackle that. Employer trip reduction services. The city has a really excellent employer program they've been running for several years. We had an idea to expand on that, depending on how we could fund it and manage it. Ideas for different types of transit in the valley. Maybe we all have talked about a shuttle system that runs more frequently out of Brush Creek. Also, another idea along the list that would support that is optimizing Brush Creek, maybe doubling the number of parking spaces out there. Now that the county owns it, we have the option to do a master plan for Brush Creek that would include that. Something that could possibly be done with smaller vehicles, more agile vehicles, shuttles from the airport. We have been talking, I know Brian's been working on a shuttle out of Brush Creek up to the Bells to take some of the pressure off of the Highlands parking garage. Just a step back to look at, and this would include both expanding RAFTA services if we could fund that, and also different types. It could also include employer van pools. There's a lot more potential to do van pools. Maybe people that are still going to want to drive from Western Garfield County, but we can stop them at Brush Creek and do van pools and smaller vehicles coming into Aspen and Snowmass and throughout the county. A lot of parts of the country have solved some of these congestion problems with actually regulating travel through transportation demand management ordinances that hit new development, they hit construction site transportation, and also are managed through employers that have actual rules and goals about how many trips each is responsible for reducing. It's a new idea up here, but it's been done successfully in other parts of the country, and it's pretty exciting. Again, optimizing Brush Creek for more trip conversion. We now have 400 trips that are converted out of Brush Creek. Perhaps we could look at doubling that or tripling that. I don't know what those goals might be, but we could develop those. And then another idea is we do a really good job of counting vehicles up here, but we don't necessarily know what the different trips are, the different travel types, and the different situations of the human beings that are making those travel decisions. A more sort of deep TDM analysis that would be managed through employers is a way to sort of get at that understanding the behaviors that make people choose the transportation options that they choose. It's kind of easy to say, well, why don't more people ride the bus? Why don't people carpool? Well, I don't think you can answer those questions until you know more about the people and the trips that they're making. And it's all different types of trips. So a travel analysis and then a people analysis, a TDM analysis.
Okay, thank you. And thanks to the staff for generating a list we can start to work off of. I'm going to ask for two things. One is if people can think of other things they would want to add to this list at this time. John has already mentioned, considering rail or funding contingency or something to take a look at it. But are there other future projects that people would like to add to this list of potential? There's none of these are chosen yet.
Well, I'd love to see the EV connected at Brush Creek. I don't know whether that's the county or EOTC, but that'd be great.
The electric vehicle charging station at the, so there is existing projects we're trying to finish. So let's leave that aside. And we get to the next meeting, we will see the budget needed to fulfill the remaining projects as well. The only thing I really wrote down here for myself was looking at partnering and continuing to partner more with CLEAR, which is our Down Valley partners who are trying to introduce TDM. I understand Lynn and our staff met with them last week or so, something like that. But I don't know what that takes its form, but again, if we're solving the congestion problems in Glenwood as much as the Upper Valley, we need to be working collectively with them. And the other thing I think we really need to do is to go through this list to see which of these cannot be funded by the EOTC and have to be funded should they go forward, or we want to see them go forward. For like the continue to build upon Aspen's program supporting employers, that's kind of the PASS program, the discounted RAFTA PASS program. Can we use EOTC money to buy more discounted passes for employers, or to help match them, or whatever? Would that fit in it? The Pitkin County Airport closure, traffic mitigation plan, and transit funding, I think that's very important. I think that's got to be important to all our local economies and guest experience. But can we use mass transit money to bring tourists from the Garfield Airport at Eagle Airport or whatever? I mean, that becomes a real question, and it's probably not. So, what other ways could EOTC help with this? I'm not sure. But I think eliminating which ones we would have to fund separately if we want to see them go forward or apply for grants or, whatever, is a really important thing. I don't know that we could or should be the ones to develop a regional parking plan, but I'd love to see other partners charging to park instead of just saying, hey, congestion's a problem, let's spend more taxes on buses. At some place, there's got to be disincentives too, and right now we're just all in the incentive business here. I'll stop with that, but I just wanted to say if anybody has thoughts on any of these, I think obviously you could do a strategic plan with the transportation money because it's how to spend the transportation money. But I don't know about all these others. Could they really be which we can use money on, which we can't.
Rachel, can I, again, not having had the opportunity to have a presentation by the Transportation Coalition, I have a gut feeling that a lot of these cross over. So rather than reinvent the wheel again, because we've reinvented it for 40 years now, I'd like us to not do that again. I think looking at what the Transportation Coalition has done with this list here and adding to it makes better sense than them coming in over here and us saying this over here. And maybe that is a presentation we should have at a time when we're all in the room and hear the presentation of the coalition and helping us create trip reduction ideas and also knowing what we can fund and not fund.
And I think the coalition does have an interest in coming to present to this board with their findings.
And they sent their final report today to all of us.
I haven't had the
Oh, I know,
opportunity.
yeah, it's too late to read it.
I wasn't part of it, so
right
I'm not
before the
privy to it
meeting.
like some are.
But, you know, again, if there was one I wanted to advance here from this list, it's increasing the bus service that, in a way that captured more cars, particularly Brush Creek Intercept Lot. And I think there's some effort going with RAFTA now to do a bus that goes from the Brush Creek Intercept Lot up to the high school and the hospitals already. So RAFTA's been developing that already. I don't know if the frequencies are what this group was thinking, or if we would need to augment that with additional funding for the frequencies. But at least, how do we get maximize, if the goal is maximizing use of the Brush Creek Intercept Lot, that's a goal for me, and getting more cars there, out of their car there. What transit services, or do we need to augment any other services that RAFTA feels we would catch more cars? I mean, they're the data experts on this. Francie?
Yeah, I'll speak to the one about the parking, because between the airport proposal to double the parking and Brush Creek to double the parking, we're asking more people to get in their cars and drive around. I don't understand that. It's the antithesis of what our goals have been for years in this valley, to reduce emissions and get more cars off the road. I don't think increased parking, especially free parking, as you point out, is a way to encourage people to get on the bus. I think it's exactly the opposite. And I just really hate to see all those down valley commuters drive all the way to Brush Creek and then get on a bus just to avoid the last few miles. I don't really support that one. I'm sorry, Rachel.
Yeah, no, I understand, but where do you want the buses to start to catch more people that the EOTC should be funding?
Possibly free fare.
Okay,
have to have
I want to bring back out the free fare data. Ridership was down the 2 months of free fare. It was
But there were other political issues at the time where I think some people didn't want to get on a bus.
Right, and we also know that to truly go to a fare-free system, we need to have 25% more bus drivers, 25% more buses, this is what Kurt
But wait a minute,
has
you're
said
saying
to
the
our-
opposite. You're saying riders were down, but we need more bus drivers. How could that be
We're going
true?
to capture the 2,500 cars a day that the Transportation Coalition wants to capture. They're not coming
Right,
to
that's
town.
true.
That was the number they came up with.
But
Well, it's not just buses, though. It would need to be probably HOV three plus vehicles as well, or vans, or,
Right.
I mean, it could be other options.
And so now we can go back to HOV enforcement starting at Old Snowmass Canyon, and we could fund that. That's an idea that's not on this. It can't come out of EOTC money, but it could come out of our general funds, just like the car share app could.
Serious.
Because we're at a
Yeah,
kind of funny point that way.
I mean, I keep coming back, there's this split in terms of projects between strictly mass transit, which are clear, and then reducing congestion like the carpool app and things like that. And I think really need to hear from the attorney where we are on that line. And I'm not in favor of going back to the voters to get our remit changed until we really have a really clear vision of what we want to do and how we're going to do it. So I think it's really important. I'm sorry the lawyer's not here today, because that would have been really helpful. Yeah.
Which also brings up, I think the modeling could be really helpful, because then if we could fund that and then it would show us where we need to potentially spend money. I think that could be valuable.
Again, I mean, EOTC, even though its name is Transportation Committee, we're very limited in what we are authorized to do, and very limited in our monies. We got to be clear. I mean, there's a lot of transportation issues. Most of them fall within the county, so.
And we will be bringing that back, obviously, but I think you're going to hear that you remain limited. So your scope.
So let's just be really clear what our limits are, so we can then focus on things, get things done within whatever we're allowed to do.
Right. Well, Tom, I agree with you entirely, especially on the EOTC money, but I'd like to hope that maybe we consider doing more than that with our general fund individually and contributing, because otherwise, having sat through the 21st Century Transportation Committee, a lot of those ideas are not going to be able to be funded by the EOTC. And they all work together. They all come together or they don't come together. And so I think that we're going to need more than just EOTC money to do some of these things. And I want to have the full presentation and make sure people are fully aware of whether or not we can actually implement some of those suggestions that are coming out of the Transportation Coalition, unless we are planning on building a 6-lane. Because the state is not telling us that they would allow us to take all the HOV vehicles and all the transit vehicles and put them in the bus lane and do it, and still not without starting a new environmental impact statement. And we could start a new environmental impact statement to look at all sorts of things all over again. But, I just am saying we could model things we're not allowed to do. We could model things we're not allowed to implement. And I'm worried about that.
Well, I mean, there is a value to modeling. Is not expensive in the realm of things, and it doesn't hurt to model and understand if there's something that could really make a difference. But right now, it's not, permitted. Maybe then you put in the effort to get it made possible. But I don't know. But modeling's not a big number.
Yeah. We are doing some modeling on the entrance, and we'll be presenting that soon. But if we're going to do modeling, I want to see us modeling paid parking in Snowmass Village. We can't keep saying Aspen's the only one to do paid parking, and we want to model how we control congestion, how we get more people on the buses. Then we have to start talking about modeling with the TDMs in place. We need to start talking about paid parking at the Airport Business Center. We can't just say, we're all going to control congestion. Aspen could go up to $10 an hour. Snowmass is the free lunch with free parking. And by the way, let's all put the EOTC money into free buses. That's all carrots. We have to have sticks as much as carrots. And now we're sitting here talking about what new carrots we can put in the stew rather than what are the sticks. And the 21st century is sticks. I mean, that's about trying to charge cars, every car that comes into Aspen, a fee if they're not on a bus. Or if they're not a high occupancy vehicle, or willing to pay the Lexus lane fee.
Or they're a service vehicle.
Right.
And their employee will pay it.
So I think we've got some good ideas and good discussion here. Are there other ideas? Sounds like modeling seems to be an important one. Paid parking associated with that is one that I'm hearing.
But again,
in addition to this,
parking, is that in the remit of EOTC? I don't know. Parking doesn't have anything to do with buses, other than gets cars off the road and maybe buses can go faster. But we need to know what we can focus on, what we can't focus on.
Sounds like that's going to be top priority.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Are there any other thoughts or questions from the group related to these projects or others that don't have to do with legal interpretation at the moment, because we know we've got to bring it up.
Explain what your third point was about disseminating the funds instead of spending them. What was that? You had that slide that said the 18% we could redistribute it. What does that mean?
That was a thought of Do you want to redistribute the EOTC monies? Maybe there would not be an EOTC moving forward, and those monies get redistributed to the, within the, I guess, jurisdictions that are currently receiving money. So.
And where
do
they
you-
were raised, or based on where they were
For
raised?
transit, that's right, that's right. So do you give more money to Snowmass, do you give more money to Aspen, do you give more money to Raft, or what have you? Things along those lines. And
We
then,
didn't talk about that.
no, you didn't.
No, we didn't. That's an option. You could all individually do more. You could do more service to Phillips Curve with the Woody Creek shuttle, because that's paid for out of the EOTC general budget. So everything that's paid for out of the general budget now would go away. Linda would go away. Future projects would go away. We would just redistribute the money
I believe
to our
that was the
transportation
idea with the
departments.
suggestion.
In that instance, that's right.
Yeah.
I would be concerned that we wouldn't then be working together. And I think that is a huge benefit to potentially be able to all get together and make some plans together and solve problems as, you know, 3 jurisdictions working together.
I'd weigh in on the master plan for Brush Creek. That just feels like a really good focal point. We all, that's our confluence, and there's a lot of productive space there too, so.
So that's a good
Second,
top
some
priority.
movement in that.
And I think there was a desire of, we keep talking about a strategic plan maybe with a 5-year horizon, but we know that we're going to be halfway through the year, coming up here pretty soon, as for staff to walk away too with some ideas of, are there priorities for like a year one that you're seeing on this list or others that we can explore, make sure they might be legal, but, to Britta's point, that one could be one that we, perhaps advance and see if it's feasible.
All right, well, let's just go down the line. Do you have another?
There's his hand.
Oh,
Just one more thing. Looking at TDM ordinances targeted towards new development, construction, site trip reduction, and this may put your airport hat on. With all the construction happening next summer, and Brian Pettit's pacing in the back about this. He has most of his staff come up and down in shuttles that he provides every day, and they say they only work here because of that kind of service. If we know we're having a massive influx of construction next summer, is there something we could do? I don't think funding would work for this, but just as a strategy overall for this topic, to manage the huge number of people who are probably coming up from the same region to the same job site every day, probably be a good thing if it's not already in the works.
Yeah, and I think right now, because it sounds like City of Aspen does have some rules around that. The county does not, but one of the things that we are looking at as far as moving people to and from work on a large construction project, that was part of, sort of part of the bid that we got of ideas of how to not jam up the highway corridor, is being able to move people more efficiently, whether that is on buses or, in vans and those types of things. So there's a whole lot of communication happening in the background as we speak, as it relates to airport closure and, all of the different construction projects that may be happening during that time, about transportation, related to, if you can't fly in here, how do people get here if it's not a rental car? Can you come up with, alternative ideas? So those conversations are also happening. So hopefully that answers your question on the.
If they're happening, yeah, okay.
Patty?
Real quick, and Brian, help me if I'm incorrect here. Picken County's construction management plans already deal with traffic, because you can't legally park on county roads. So you either have to park.
That's right.
So if you have a big lot, somebody told me they counted 42 cars at one site because they had a huge lot. So there's only so much we can do. I have requested over many times now that the city maybe put into their, maybe Snowmass into their construction management plan.
Patty, can you speak into your speaker so that I can hear you better?
You can only park X amount of cars, the rest have to be carpooled. Carpooling in the county has worked really well on construction sites. Lessons learned, a good lesson learned, so I just want to put that out there.
Great. I'd love to see the county share its policy with us and make sure we're doing
It's
the
in our
same.
construction management plan.
Under your construction management. Thank you for that. All right, Britta, I was just going to ask, did you have, I love the Brush Creek Management Plan focus as a top priority. Did you have others, and we'll come around the line as top priorities you'd like to see if there were potentially year one projects? We're not going to vote on them or anything like that, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess, again, I don't want to restate what others said, but without understanding more about what the Transportation Coalition has to bring to us, you know, I think that I would kind of stop there for me in this year.
That's fine. Tom?
I have nothing more to add.
Modeling, you wanted,
Well, I think modeling was brought up. I wouldn't hesitate to do the modeling just because it may not be something that the CDOT would allow today, but I would continue with it because it doesn't cost that much to model, and maybe we'll find some great solutions, but that's all.
thank you. Christine?
The only other random idea I would throw out is and to address first and last mile mobility, service gaps as North 40 has been recently brought up to me. The 90 homes out there, a lot of families don't take any kind of transportation because it's too far to walk from parts of the North 40. So some kind of pilot program out there.
Interesting. Yeah?
Sure. So it hasn't been said yet today. I think at the end of the day, we're a rural resort. And so how are the plans that come out from this table, how are you a world-class rural resort? So in other words, is Brush Creek the world-class transportation solution? And if it's the hub that we're all looking for in terms of destinations to Aspen and Snowmass, what is the integrated solution that starts at Brush Creek and finishes at either Aspen or Snowmass? And I'm not hearing that. So there's an issue today, right? We have a free parking lot with free Wi-Fi and free fares to two destinations. And yet, the only people that seem to have gotten the notice are the mobile home community that like to live there over the winter, which is wonderful. But yet, as something that commuters take every day, we're still not full.
Right.
There's never a variable message sign on the highway that says the parking lot's full other than for the Up in the Sky Festival or for Jazz Aspen. And so to me,
X Games.
X Games. So this board has this asset that even free, we cannot give away. Even with free transportation, we cannot fill up. And so to me, I'm happy to look at another PDF and plan, but I'd rather see, like, why isn't this lot full every step of the way? Should we, instead of thinking about full fare and the whole access corridor, are there other stops along the way? Is it Snowmass? Is it Basalt that we also say are free, right? So we're taking people off the road before the canyon, and we're still focusing on solving Pitkin County-led solutions. So thank you for my diatribe.
Thank you. That was an interesting kind of variation on a theme of what if you were able to do reduced or free fare from a lower point in the valley, and would that help? And we'd have to see what the capacity is for the park and ride lot there, but that's an interesting one to add to the list. Anything else, Jeff?
I just want to support what Jeffrey said about we're supposed to be a world-class resort, and we have this clunky car situation coming into town, which just is not world-class.
This is why people were so excited about light rail and 98.
And
It's
gondolas.
so much classier than buses, but we've got pretty classy buses now. John, other things you'd like to endorse on the list or add to the list?
Just a couple things I heard that were touched on here tonight. I think anytime we can enhance transit options too, and the two examples I can think of are, this was pointed out just the other night, our crosstown shuttle being discontinued during the off-season. I know some people in the West End do depend on it year-round. So there's that. I know it's all tied to housing. And then the other area would be buses to Redstone, which was also brought up earlier, but I've been talking to some people in Redstone, and I know they would appreciate just the circulator so they could, although that's going to be a problem with the bridge being replaced this summer, but at any rate, in the future, I know Redstone would like their transit situation enhanced if possible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the in-town would be us as opposed to EOTC for the crosstown shuttle. You know, and we would need to take our own deeper look at, I know over in my neighborhood, the Galena Street shuttle used to run summers as well as winters, and now it's only winters, and that's okay. There's other things, but we've all, in-town transit is more of an Aspen issue to deal with our paid parking revenues and other sources. I'll come over.
I was just thinking about what Francie was saying about the park and ride and about people driving there and then getting out of their car and getting out of the bus. I mean, I had brought up to RAFTA because in my discussions with the school, just increasing the opportunity to park at the park and ride, because there is so much, I mean, the coalition reported on it, and I forget what the number was, but it was a crazy amount of traffic generated coming in town and out of town of people dropping their kids off at school.
Right.
And like, the thing is you can say to people, that's ridiculous. There's a school bus. You should be putting your kid on the school bus. But for a lot of people, especially working parents, it is like a special time in the morning where they can be with their kids. And so to say to people, don't do that or you can't do that, I just don't know that that's going to work. But I think there is a belief that if there was transportation option at the park and ride to get, whether it's teachers or kids that can't park on campus right now, to park there and take the bus, it would be a much better option than currently what's happening with all the traffic coming in and the inability to park at the school district. Also, if you are trying to go from Snowmass to the school district or even to Highlands, despite the winter when they have like the direct bus 2 times a day, it is very frustrating because you are forced to go to 8th Street, get off the bus, cross the street, so you're going into the traffic just to go back and sit in the traffic again to get out of town. It's frustrating. I mean, if there was an easier way for me to get to Snowmass to the school, I would take the bus all the time there.
They are running buses up to the schools and the hospital and Highlands, directly from Brush Creek. You don't have to go to 8th Street anymore.
Right, but they weren't doing that before.
But they started, they've
Right,
come.
because of the discussion with the school. But I'm just saying, like, that is the problem. I mean, and so it's like, I think it's better for people to get off at the Brush Creek Park and Ride and even get on the bus for wherever they're going, whether it's the school or the hospital or Highlands into town, than the alternative, which is everyone being in their cars.
Right.
So looking at more solutions like that would be much better. Because, and I know the problem, especially with RAFTA, is the driver shortage. You know, is that some of the routes, like the flyer, just stopped happening from Brush Creek to Highlands because of that. Because of, you know, not being.
Lack of drivers, lack of capacity.
Yeah, so it's like you just have to remove routes, and where do you start at that?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, that was it.
No, what you're building on is very much this one bullet point they had in here of maximizing the Brush Creek intercept lot. How do you find the routes, the things that will maximize its usage? And a small thing that's coming out to me from this whole meeting is better PR. How do we get the word out about these options? And we've all talked about it before as well, but how do we reward people sometimes who are using these options? Can we use EOTC money to buy, $120 gift cards from City Market and hand them out to people kind of randomly some days? Thanks for riding today. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for using the park. I mean, let's think about how to make it more fun and something that people feel collaborative about joining in and participating. How do people know about the new bus up to the school? Things like that. John, and then we'll come back over to you. Okay.
Sorry, while we're talking about the Brush Creek Park and Ride, I know this doesn't have unanimous support, but I think we should be talking about the two-bridge solution to connect the Rio Grande Trail to the Park and Ride and to the ABC. I've been hearing from a lot of people at the ABC that say, hey, we support this, we feel like we voted for it, and why isn't it happening? And I think, as has been pointed out earlier tonight, with all the construction projects that are coming up, the airport, the entrance, the 2 new hotels at the bottom of Lift 1A, Meadows Housing, we're going to have a tremendous amount of traffic on the highway, and I think anything we can do to get people an alternative mode to get into town, that's what we should be doing.
very good. I appreciate that. Ted?
Yeah, just two things on these comments. I do think the ABC Rio Grande one is moving forward first. They're citing it.
Excellent.
Yeah, which is, I agree would be great. On the idea that I think when I first moved here, transit was always based out of Aspen and how to get people to the ski mountains, and that's where the 8th Street kind of handoff always kind of happened. The new bus that they're talking about, I believe, starts on June 28th. That's from Brush Creek to basically the Castle Maroon Loop. 5 in the morning, I believe, 5 in the evening. It's not as regular of a schedule, but it's more meant to be for the hospital, for the school campus, or the ARC, or at Highlands in the winter, or even to access Maroon Bells. And I think it's a great idea to start pivoting to the build-out of Brush Creek, because more people are accessing the valley and the ski areas from that direction now than the traditional way when all these things started, even EOTC itself probably, when it was like, let's all base everything from Ruby Park. So just an update on a couple of things there, but good discussion.
No, that's a great item to have brought up.
So glad to hear that.
Sam?
It's a 2-year pilot program, by the way, sorry. 2 years for the bus RAFTA got
As a
from a
pilot.
grant. So then it'll have to probably be revisited if it works, yeah, sorry.
Nothing more. Patty, did you have another? Okay. I'm just not sure on this, and we can check into. Yeah, I'll come over to you, Susan. I see you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It used to be that if you told the driver you needed to catch the Castle Maroon, they would pull into that kiss and ride location right by the roundabout and let you get off there, so you wouldn't have to come all the way into 7th Street. But, I don't know if that is still active. I've seen some buses pulling off there, people get out, wait, and take the Maroon Creek bus up.
Only the local.
Yeah,
The local, not the BRT.
the local will, but not the BRT.
Okay.
But, so anyhow, that, again, it comes back to wayfinding and knowledge of how you can intersect these routes a little better. Susan is on the phone. Susan, thank you for your patience.
Thanks. Sure. I think the Transportation Coalition would love to come present, and possibly at the next meeting if that works. But we can work that out. But I think that would be informative for this group. And we started with a presentation for RAFTA, and it's very important, I think, to get feedback from communities all up and down the valley on these solutions. And that's sort of what we're in the process of doing. And so I think it would be good to present to this group as soon as we can.
Yeah. Susan, I want to thank you both for going down and presenting to the RAFTA meeting in Glenwood Springs. It was really very informative. The kind of question I just simply have is, do we want, or would it be possible perhaps to have that presentation to our boards individually? Or do you need to wait until we're together again in middle of July, end of July? I kind of think we could work you onto our agenda sooner for a presentation in Aspen, if Snowmass could and others wanted to, rather than, and then we could meet as an EOTC and perhaps have a refresher and discuss it, but we've all seen it beforehand and then be a little more prepared to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We want to make sure that we're gathering information from not just electeds, but business groups and, all different community sources before we just, take it all just to the electeds. Because I think we need feedback from, all
Okay. Yeah, whatever timing makes sense for you. I was just going to suggest that we don't have to wait till it's all the EOTC. And it seems like if individually our boards were able to look at it a little bit, it would make the EOTC presentation of it that much more productive.
Yep. I think that's a very good
when you
idea.
get to that point. Okay, very good.
Point of clarification. When she's saying we, she's talking for the coalition, not for the Snowmass Town Council.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes. Sorry.
I'm just confused at the role here.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Patty. Let's see. You've captured a lot of ideas from all of us, haven't you?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, so thank you for sharing. I think we have some good direction. I think we can go back, and I think it sounds like one of the main things is to hear from the attorney as to what we can and can't do. And, you know, I think as far as the governance model, we have pretty clear direction on what you would all like to do there. And as for these projects, I think I am hearing a theme on Brush Creek come through quite clearly, as well as a few others. But, you know, I think some of those also depend on, again, the interpretation from the attorney. So that seems to be a very high priority. So we will follow up on that. And I think at the next meeting, we'll come back with, you know, I guess some of this information processed for you, and then we can have a conversation about next steps.
Okay, thank you. And then the ongoing work projects that EOTC has going, that will go on. That nothing stopped because of this meeting. And I'm looking at it, and May 12th would be our next regular meeting that we could get a presentation from Linda on about this contract overrun. Can you guys get it on Snowmass and your board's agendas in a timely fashion?
Right away.
And if you could get us the memo out as soon as possible about why the price has doubled.
Yeah.
And what the project entails, so that we can all think about it as our individual
Yeah, with
boards.
sufficient detail to really understand it.
Okay.
And Rachel, if Lee, the BOCC, and I'm not sure, this would be a question for Rye also, needed to do it in a regular meeting session, and we needed it to be timely, we could either do a special meeting, or we can do a we can do an emergency ordinance, so it could move forward quicker, and then do a second reading follow-up. So,
Yeah.
because I know that drags things out
Yeah,
even more.
there's processes sometimes. I have no idea if this is a resolution to allow the EOTC to spend the money, or whether it's an ordinance.
Let the board
Yeah.
commissioners,
But we'll look into how we can move that forward for you, Linda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
And Snowmass's next meeting is the first Monday in May. Fourth, yeah.
4th, so you have,
I will wiggle onto the agenda.
okay. And when's your next regular meeting, the BOCC?
Calendar.
in
That's right.
13th of May.
13th. Okay, so you may be able to have that settled up within 3 weeks. And again, if something like that comes up again, we can always add it to an EOTC agenda if we're all going to be in the room, you know, if it's timely before then. Is there anything else from us, Ryan?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay.
We don't have a meeting for 2 weeks.
Is there any other closing thoughts from members of the board here?
Real quick for Britta, do you mind? As far as the management plan for Brush Creek and for the city, we are taking into consideration, part of this is special events that you have in Snowmass, or you might have in Aspen, as part of our planning process. So your jurisdictions will all be involved as we move forward, which is in process. So it's already a priority for us to get a plan going there. So thank you for pushing that even further.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Very good. Then I would accept a motion to adjourn well, it's actually a retreat. We didn't have a motion to adjourn, so we cannot adjourn.
We don't need to adjourn a retreat.
That we don't have to. So thanks, everybody. I know there were some difficult conversations, and we went around in a little bit of circles, but they tend to pull more of it out after we're done with these sort of things.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.